There was a press conference held by Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam. She announced the city will postpone its Legislative Council election by 1 year. The election was originally scheduled for September the 6th this year. Now it will be postponed to September the 5th next year if everything goes well. The chief executive also addressed the situation of COVID-19 outbreak in Hong Kong. She used the word severe several times, so you can tell how severe the situation of the outbreak is in Hong Kong. Now, for more insight into that, let's cross live to Mr. Lawrence Ma in Hong Kong. He's the chairman of the Hong Kong Legal Exchange Foundation. Now, Mr. Ma, let's start with the postponement of Legislative Council elections. Carrie Lam said this is the toughest decision made by her in her career as the chief executive. What's your reading into this?
Well, that's very true, because under the current Legislative Council ordinance, the chief executive must choose a day for the next general election within 3 months after the Legislative Council is dissolved. Now, the current Legislative Council was dissolved on the 18th of July, which means that the chief executive has to decide a day for the general election before the 17th of October. But obviously, because of the widespread COVID-19 pandemic, holding a Legislative Council election would be disastrous to public health. However, the problem being that the Legislative Council would have a vacuum from September onwards, because all the legislative councillors will no longer hold any valid office, as their terms of appointment is now officially ended. Now, what the government is proposing to do is to invoke the Emergency Regulation Ordinance to postpone the election for 1 full year and have their terms to be extended for 1 year. And this extension, because it involves breaching the basic law, the central government has to be involved, and the central government has given full support to the Hong Kong government to give validity of these continuous terms of Legislative Council to carry on for the next year.
So, as a legal expert, this extraordinary case, would you say, is the first time in Hong Kong's history since its return to China?
Yes, exactly. This is the first time where the Legislative Council election has to be postponed, because under Section 68 of the Basic Law, every term of the Legislative Council is 4 full years, and there has never been any extension sought or postponement made with respect to the general election.
So let's talk about candidacy a little bit, because on Thursday, Hong Kong authorities barred 12 opposition candidates from the elections. One of them was Joshua Wong, who says, quote, resistance will continue. What's your response to this?
Well, you have to understand that those 12 nominees, they have been validly excluded because you have the returning officer have to judge their previous conduct and expression, such as going over to the United States to seek embargo or sanction on Hong Kong. And by doing so, they ran foul of their pledge of allegiance to Hong Kong if you ask a foreign power to come and sanction and embargo Hong Kong. So based on that, the returning officers do not believe that they would, if they come to be elected in office, they would pledge allegiance to Hong Kong, they would properly uphold the basic law. So they were not believed, judging from their previous conduct. Now, what Mr. Joshua Wong has said is that his resistance will continue. Now, if Joshua Wong's future action infringe any of our criminal laws, and particularly the new national security law, no doubt he will be arrested and charged. The rule of law in Hong Kong will definitely have to be upheld.
So, Mr. Ma, this disqualification decision was announced on Thursday, and today, which is Friday, the postponement of the whole election was just announced. Will this disqualification decision still stand next year when the election actually happens?
Well, that would not be the case, because when the next election is coming forth in July next year, there would be a all new and a fresh nomination process. And those nominees although they are qualified now or they be disqualified now, they would have to qualify themselves in July next year, so that they would be able to be recognized by the returning officer that they have a valid nomination. So whatever they are, even for those people who are qualified now, their conduct will have to be judged and continuously determined in July next year, so that whether their nomination would be valid at that time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawrence Ma in Hong Kong.